Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, February 4th, 2021. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Joined, as always, on Thursdays by Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. Steve, you hustled home from Nashville after National Signing Day. How you feeling this morning?
I got a smoothie in hand. I'm a little tired. My stomach hurts. And I'm just ready to get to vacation starting on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, I understand. This is the end of the school year in a lot of ways for Mr. Wiltfong, so he is soldiering through for us. Ohio State finished with a great class, number 2 to Alabama. We've talked about it for over a year here with Steve. Let's get your general impressions on the class as you put it to bed. And yesterday on the show, you also had Ryan Day on there. Let's put a bow around 2021 for Ohio State.
Yeah, speaking of people waking up feeling good, Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes and this recruiting class that maybe not done with JT Tuimoloau still out there in play, which if Ohio State lands him, that would give them 5 of the top 10 ranked players in the top 247. So this is just an electric recruiting class that, my favorite player in the class is Travion Henderson. I wish he would have played his senior year. I hate that we have him ranked number 10. I wouldn't be surprised if he was better than that. And we're talking about the number 10 player in the country, so you're splitting hairs. But I just think he is a blue chip safety recruit. He's an elite running back. His junior film was, as y'all have heard me say numerous times, better than anybody in the country at any position. And then on top of that, he's a 4.0 student. He's just the complete and utter total package. And I can't wait to see what he does at Ohio State. And you pair him with Evan Pryor, who's also one of the fastest running backs in the country. I think that, to use the word again, Ohio State's running back room is on the verge of being electric. You look at Donovan Jackson. This is a great offensive line here. I think if I'm looking at this class from 50 feet away, I say offensive line was the best position group in this class, and Donovan Jackson is possibly the best offensive line prospect in the class. And there's some great tackles: J.C. Latham, Tommy Brockermeyer, Nolan Rucci, Marius Mims, guys that fit everything you're looking for in that position. But Donovan Jackson is just a dominant football player. Another super intelligent young man that has great feet, tremendous length and toughness. And so those are 2 guys I absolutely love in this Ohio State class. Obviously, Emeka Egbuka is our number 1 receiver. Jack Sawyer is going to be an outstanding pass rusher. Mike Hall is a guy that was in the 5-star discussion for us at the end and is one of the best defensive tackles in this class. And when you have a Hall that's ranked number 2 with an average ranking of over 94, only 3 schools this cycle with an average ranking per commit of over 94, Alabama and Clemson being the others. You could go on and on about this Hall. If there's a sleeper in the class, maybe it's Jansen Dunn, who's kind of a 6'2", lanky but athletic defensive back that I think has a ton of upside once he gets into Mickey Marotti and Ohio State's strength and conditioning program. And so I'm excited to see what this group can do when they get into Columbus. Kyle McCord is going to push that quarterback room when he gets in there. And J.K. Johnson and Jordan Hancock were 2 of the more highly recruited cornerbacks. And then Reed Carrico, what a special senior season he had on both sides of the ball for Ironton.
We will have a commitment evaluation on Donovan Jackson, courtesy of Mark Porter, coming up later today. So that's an excellent tease there. And you made a point in there about the average ranking of 94 among 3 teams. If you're looking for a reason, there are 3 teams every year you can pretty much pencil into the Final Four now, being Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson. That 94-plus rating is basically the nucleus of why that exists. Obviously, Ryan Day has spoken about this group ad nauseum like we have. Did he say anything yesterday that kind of caught your fancy?
Well, we had him on the National Signing Day show on 24/7 Sports. Just what a cool, just chill guy. Easy to see why he clicks with prospects so easily, and he's one of the hardest working head coach recruiters in the country. But the first person he he gave praise to was Mark Pantoni, and the infrastructure that Ohio State has, it just blows away so many schools. And I was kind of talking to a former Alabama coach, and he was just talking about the infrastructure that they have there in Tuscaloosa and how that just sets them apart from so many people. It's the same with Ohio State. And what I mean by infrastructure is having a plan of attack, of always knowing who the up and coming prospects are, getting them eval'd and getting on them early, and having good evaluators, having a plan in place that makes sure that the evaluations that you are making are within a structure, and these guys fit what you're looking for to maintain your chances of winning the championship. And I just think Ohio State's infrastructure on the recruiting side is off the charts compared to damn near anybody, outside of Alabama. And so recruiting is more than just building relationships and getting kids to fall in love with you. It's also being organized with your plan, being organized with your recruiting board and the prospects that you're going after, and being organized and not being late on guys. And Ohio State is a school that can come in late on guys that maybe emerge late or they're monitoring, and as they continue to gather intel, they start to like the player more and more. But they just are, all their P's and Q's are in a row, and it's because of terrific infrastructure. And then they just have guys that form great relationships with kids as well. So that was one thing that stood out. Was Mark Pantoni, which everyone on this site knows what an important cog he is to the machine. And it's still just funny to me how some programs sometimes don't value that position or even pay that position what it deserves, because that position is more important than position coaches, and that's no disrespect. They're all important to the machine. I just think that the schools that put more emphasis on having great infrastructure with their recruiting and organization are the ones that are doing the best. The other thing that stood out with the conversation with Coach Day was, with pandemic recruiting, obviously he hadn't gotten a chance to meet some of these guys in person. And so he said it was really big to get Jack Sawyer and Kyle McCord in the boat early, and that those were two guys that helped build the class with Ohio State. And those were also two guys that he said he kind of leaned on for character evaluations for some of the guys that they were recruiting, and if they were culture fits with what they're trying to do. Because if you get some bad apples in your locker room, all of a sudden, you may be a talented football team, but you're not maximizing your potential, obviously. So it was interesting to hear just how important Jack Sawyer and Kyle McCord were, beyond the talent that they're actually bringing to their position rooms, but just as leaders and guys that he trusted to help make sure that they were on the right guys.
You will not see a better example of what Mark Pantoni is doing than you will with Ohio State's start in the class of 2022. 2021 was nice. They finished number 2. 2022, they are number 1 with a bullet. We'll be back in a minute to discuss. All right, we are back. Any recruiting class starts with what? A quarterback, and you want to have a good one. Ohio State, class of 2022, already has Quinn Ewers in the bag. He is the number 1 player in the country, and he is a quarterback. They have the number 10 player in the country, Jaheim Singletary. You look down, number 14, Caleb Burton. What an amazing start to the class. Give us a few other names we should be focused on for about 364 days from now.
Oh, man. So they're in on so many great players in 2022. If you just ask these prospects who's recruiting you the hardest, Ohio State is generally one of the schools mentioned for these elite guys. And it just goes back to that terrific infrastructure and plan. I even remember last year when we kind of just popped Travion Henderson on the front row message board and said, Ohio State's got a great chance here. He wasn't even like one of the running backs being talked about at the time, in the Ohio State recruiting circles of who are we in on, who are we going to get? But behind the scenes, Ohio State was crushing it with Travion Henderson, and it was a guy that they loved, and it was a guy that we didn't have ranked as high as we should have at that time. But Ohio State ahead of the curve on guys like Travion Henderson. Same here in 2022. The guys we know about, I think they're one of the schools recruiting Shamar Stewart the hardest. When I talked to a coach down at Opelika, Florida, Monsignor Pace, Ohio State's mentioned alongside LSU as one of the programs recruiting him the hardest. I think Ohio State's going to have an excellent chance at Tyler Booker. He's an offensive tackle from out east, but he's playing his high school football at IMG Academy, and I think Ohio State's near the top for him. Same goes with Omari Abor out of Duncanville, Texas. That information actually might be a tad bit old. I haven't checked in with him in a while, but I think Ohio State's up there with the likes of Oklahoma. Caleb Brown, he's a young man that's pretty quiet. He's a quiet young man, just goes out there and handles his business on the field. But when you do get him to talk, Ohio State's the first school he mentions. He's a top 50 overall player, one of the more electric guys in the Midwest with the ball in his hands. Xavier Nwankpa, Caden Curry, those are other defensive players in the Midwest. Xavier being a safety, Caden the defensive tackle that Ohio State's in great shape for. They're going to have to battle for the likes of Kenyatta Jackson and Addison Nichols, whether that's with Clemson for Kenyatta and Georgia for Addison, but Ohio State's up there. I still love the Buckeyes for Keontae Goodwin, who is the first guy you would have walk off the bus in the 2022 class. He's from Louisville. He's playing his high school ball in Southern Indiana, but he's a Louisville native. And Nicholas Singletary and Dallin Hayden are a couple running backs. Ohio State's up there for. Kojo Antwi that's going to be a slobber knocker on the trail at receiver with Georgia and Texas A&M. But Brian Hartline has Buckeyes in a good spot there. And Dan, I could keep running. I could keep rattling off names. And the great thing is I probably would miss 15 guys that they covet inside the Woody that maybe I'm not in love with yet, but as I learn more about them, I'm going to love them. But they already just know way more about them because they're Ohio State and their infrastructure is in order.
Yeah, if you want to have some fun, go to the class of 2022 top players list and just scroll down and you'll see a lot of Ohio State logos on there. I know we say this every year, but they may be off to their best start ever. I got a question for you. Urban Meyer, as the Penn State site calls the gift that keeps on giving, has added Tyler Bowen to his staff in Jacksonville. Bowen was the co-offensive coordinator and tight end coach at Penn State, and that's a position they've done very well recruiting and producing, see Pat Fryermuth, et cetera. Does that hurt Penn State at all?
Well, anytime you lose a quality coach and a good recruiter, he's a good coach and a good recruiter. I don't want quality to be misconstrued as I thought he was a better recruiter than coach. He was a true up-and-comer in college football, a dogged recruiter and a really good football coach that had a reputation of being really good even before he got on the field at places. And he helped Penn State win some big recruiting battles. So anytime you lose a guy like that, you're going from someone that you knew was good to now you're making a hire. And so that applies to any school, right? If Ohio State had to get a new defensive line coach, would the next guy be as good as LJ or Larry Johnson? Time would tell. So, we'll see what Penn State does. But James Franklin's won 11 games 3 times there. Been in 3 New Year's 6 bowls. He's navigated through staff changes before. So I think that he'll make a good hire just based on past history. And recruiting is very important to them up there. Their recipe's a little different than Ohio State's to try and get to the same place. They've had some good results in the last year. It wasn't the season that they were looking for, but you throw that out the window and it's been a pretty good run up there.
That's all true, but I would pay a pretty penny to get a copy of the video of Franklin when he found out Bowen was going to the Jags. We appreciate Steve stopping by. We hope he takes a long, restful vacation and comes back ready to wow us with more recruiting information. Have a good one, Bucknutters.
Thanks, y'all. I bet Coach was happy for him, and I'll see you on the front row.